All right, we are on the air. So with that, we want to welcome everybody to Fan for Racing Radio. Second week for us, starting our new season, 2026. Second interview of the year this year. We're doing our platform is going to be a little bit different this year. Not only going to speak to drivers, but we're gonna try and go a little bit more behind the scenes with people that are involved with racing. Today's guest is Steven Blakesley from Blakesley Sports Media. I know a lot of you have heard him from here all the way to the East Coast. He's really expanded his horizons, his social media presence as well as his own presence, announcing for different platforms all around the country, which is good because when he first started, which we'll get into that later with the interview, he started out here on the West Coast. So it's kind of neat to see how much he has grown. And gosh, the places he has visited, and it's really exciting. So that's our prerogative for this season is to give you the fans a whole different look besides just drivers and team owners. So with that, we're going to welcome Steven Blakesley from Blakesley's Sports Media, and we're going to start off with the warm welcome.
How are we doing today?
So we're doing good, Steven. So with that, kind of let's start off a little bit with a little bit of your background. I know you have a long background. I know you go back a lot of years. Gosh, I don't even remember the first time I met you. I think I was still in high school.
Yeah, so basically, to make it really simple, is I started going to the races with my dad when I was 2 years old at All American Speedway in Roseville. And between the racing on TV and the racing that I saw at Roseville, I determined when I was really little that I wanted to be an announcer. And so that had been my kind of singular laser focused goal growing up, was to try to get into motorsports announcing. And we have all kinds of photos and videos of me as a little kid, like pretending to be an announcer and interviewing my grandpas and just playing with toy cars and stuff. But as my life grew and as I grew up and my career evolved, especially in the motorsports industry, it is as much a business and an industry as it is anything else. And so to make it a career, to be a part of racing, the media definition really broadened for me. So now my Monday through Friday is extremely hectic with a lot of media and marketing for a lot of tracks and series and drivers, lots of work on producing broadcasts and editing TV shows and making all commercials and all a variety of media things. And then in some respects, the announcing on Saturday is a little bit of my, whipped cream cherry on top for all the effort and sort of the fun payoff. That really is, only a small part of my career now, but it's what I like to define myself as an announcer. But my career Monday through Friday is trying to make these events succeed.
So from your standpoint, how would you direct somebody, if they say like they want to be an announcer? How do you get into it? I mean, to actually get into the booth on in the media center on top and start announcing. I mean, you just don't walk up there and tell somebody, hey, I'm gonna be your announcer for tonight. How would somebody kind of work their way like the way you did?
Well, the way it went for me is my first role at Roseville was as the PR guy, not even as the announcer yet. So I was just volunteering to help at the high school football games and the youth football games on the PA while doing a little bit of writing for Roseville when I was 15. And so then I started, really asking them, hey, when can I get in the booth? It really starts out if you're really just starting out from nowhere is ask the track announcer or the track promoter, just simply, I want to help with the media. How can I help? And as we like to say to people, like, help people the way they need help. So you're going to have to come in very open-minded as to what that role could be. It could be as simple as just being a spotter for the announcer. I've done that before, of just helping them identify who's in a wreck, or if it's football, who made the tackle, and helping them and write on a little whiteboard what car numbers were involved, or, running and getting them a lineup from the scorekeeper or anything like that. And so if you're doing that, that can lead to, okay, hey, we're going to throw you a bone and you're going to announce, one main event a week, whether that's the mini stocks or the bandoleros, or, we have Cole who does the dwarf cars at Bakersfield, or like Noah at Roseville started doing the mini cups, which is what I was doing when I started. And so then you can just sort of start to prove yourself and establish yourself, to where ultimately you can work up to a full-time announcing role somewhere.
So when I first met you, it seemed like you're doing a lot more media, press releases, marketing for the drivers, and doing their pre-race, post-race, doing stuff for the track. How much did that help you to actually get into the whole position that you're into now? Because I know now you're dabbling on a lot of little things.
Yeah, so I think the number one thing, and I've got a couple of kids right now that are trying to make it in media and the sport. I think the best thing a young person can do that's in high school is grab a camera and start interviewing drivers in the pits. That's the best way to learn how to be a broadcaster, best way to get the drivers to know who you are, best way to get to know the media people at the track because you're visible there in the pits. There's just so many reasons. You can demonstrate a value for the track because, hey, if you hire me as the announcer, I know how to get videos on social media and get your track and your sponsors views. And so you make yourself super valuable. And so back in my day when I started, the way you made yourself valuable was writing articles. And I still do a lot of that. But I think today, the way you can get your track or series on the internet is with video content. So we've got a young man at Madeira that's doing that, Connor, he's trying to get into the sport. So he's been doing pit interviews. And then, like I mentioned earlier, my co-announcer at Roseville, Noah, he started out just doing pit area interviews as well. And now he's worked his way up to working for Kenny Wallace and working at Vegas and Phoenix. And so that's kind of my main piece of advice now is if you want to get the reps of how to talk on camera and how to be an announcer, start off just interviewing drivers and building up a social media following that you can then take to a track and say, hey, can I work with you and do a little bit of announcing, a little bit of interviewing, and let's grow together.
And I guess it also helps, that rather than just kind of stand around and look and just say, should I do it? I guess when you're at the track, it's a matter of, yeah, you walk up to a driver and you introduce yourself, and you let them know who you are, and just get into it. Because if you stand around and don't do nothing, it's like they say, a closed mouth don't get fed. And before you know it, there's going to be some other one, this kid or someone's going to come in, and they're going to want the same position you want, and they're going to be a little bit more vocal and more outgoing, and basically break out of like a shell per se.
Yeah, so basically, every young announcer and really young and old, all announcers need to be going through the pits and talking to drivers and getting to know the drivers, especially if there's a driver with kind of a tricky name to pronounce. I always encourage everyone, if you're trying to do media and racing and you have something you need to know, how do I pronounce his name? Where is he from? How old he is? Some of the things you're wanting to know. You have a great privilege to have that free pit pass and get those answers that a lot of the young kids in the stands would love the shot to walk up to a guy and go, hey, I want to get to know you. So take advantage of that as a responsibility to just walk up and go, hey, how do I pronounce your name? Hi, I'm Steven, or hi, I'm Connor, And so then where that's evolved is, instead of like, I always try to make FaceTime with 15 to 20 drivers a weekend. The evolution of that is have those conversations happen on camera. So now you've got the conversation, but then you've created some content. So that's sort of where we've sort of evolved things to. I know this doesn't really apply to like booth announcing and some of the strategies there, but it's all about the work and the groundwork you lay to get there throughout the weekend. And the announcing during the race is a lot more of just reacting to big moments, being prepared with the right info. And so 90% of the announcer's job happens outside of the booth to get yourself ready for those moments.
And actually watching where your career has taken you, from, just West Coast. Last year we seen you doing a lot of East Coast stuff, doing some SA stuff, it was pretty amazing. So how did all that come about? For you to go from here, kind of like in a sense way, Tommy and Jeffrey with their low budget TV, how they've expanded and helped flow. How did Steven get from West Coast, into the East Coast?
So this is a relationship business, and I have known Marty Mello, who's the promoter of ASA, for about 15 to 20 years. And it all started with helping his race team with some publicity. And I don't even remember how I met him. Probably was just walking the pits to do what I do, and probably just ended up coming across. And, hey, hi, Marty, my name's Steven, yada, yada. And then started doing PR for him. And then in the long and winding road, now he's the promoter of ASA. And what ASA's goal, so every series and track is different. Everything's very broadcast oriented now, right? But in the case of ASA, they have a whole separate group of announcers at every race they do that only talk to the crowd. So their live stream broadcast is a different booth than their crowd hype announcers. And so they brought me in to try to help with the crowd hype side. So that was a way different style of announcing, where we're like telling the fans, get up off your feet, and doing 3 wide salutes and explaining the format and being really loud and playing loud music. And so I think that's another thing, is you don't want to, as a media person in racing, pigeonhole yourself into one style. Like, oh, I'm just going to be a pit reporter, or I'm just going to be a PR guy, or I'm just a TV play-by-play guy. You've got to be willing to sort of be adaptable to, okay, I get this call. No, it's not the TV booth, but it's an opportunity to be at incredible racetracks on the East Coast, working with some friends of mine and doing a different style of announcing. Okay, I'm in. So that's what we always try to work with, like I said, again, I have a couple of younger guys I'm helping, and any opportunity, try to be adaptable and prepared to take advantage of it.
So how much, in the years that you've been involved with all this, how much have you noticed, of course, with the internet, and then the way we have a bunch of social media platforms to work with? What, I guess what I'm trying to say is, what are some of the advantages of the social media we have now compared to social media back when, gosh, I'm thinking back when Racing West was going around, I mean, they were the West Coast, and now we have different platforms, through social media.
Well, I kind of think that being the announcer has become far and away the hardest role that there is. I mean, maybe right there with like the flagman and the race director, as far as the amount of pressure you're under on these pay-per-views. Because back in the day, if you were announcing a race over the speakers at a fairground track, the cars are loud, the crusty old sound system all covered in dirt and dust, the fans couldn't really hear what you were saying under green, and you weren't under a lot of pressure to perform. You only had like certain moments where, a big restart or something, and you'd say, hey, race fans, this is it. It's going to be a battle, Mayhew and Jace Hansen. But now you might be live on Flow Racing with thousands of viewers for 6, 7, 8 hours, and they are listening to every single word you say. And so announcing has become a pretty demanding career with that level of pressure, especially these live stream companies. I'll give you a little bit of a behind the curtain. Your local weekly track announcer has not seen their pay increase, even with these additional eyeballs and this additional pressure. So a guy that's used to getting a couple $100 a week and doing the PA now has to play by play every lap, basically turn it into a NASCAR broadcast and have thousands of people listening to every word, and he doesn't get anything extra for it. So it's been a lot of pressure on a lot of people. And so I am finding, I have to admit, and some of my other guys are in this boat as well, we are finding that being on the content side and doing all these interviews and highlights and articles and social media posts, where we have the ability to edit and sort of be our own lone wolf and cruise the pits and make our own agenda and stuff. We're finding that to be a really enjoyable way to get the stories told at the track with a little bit less pressure. And so the announcing roles, they're getting to be harder to fill sometimes, and it's a lot of pressure on people. Like you look at like Tommy and Jeffrey with Low Budget TV. I mean, they're announcing it like 4 different tracks. I announce it like 4 different tracks. The number of people that are announcing has become a lot less. And so again, back to diversifying yourself. I think you're going to see way more people going into the content side and a lot less people focusing on the announcing side, just because with the internet, there's unlimited opportunities to make an Instagram and start interviewing people, but there's only so many seats for the announcing.
So with all these races that you've announced, is there one in particular that just really sits with you, that, when you're all done for the day, or maybe you're just feeling down and out, like, I didn't do such a good job. Is there one race that you just go back and think about that kind of gets the juices flowing and gets you going, man, I remember this race that day, and that's like kind of like your go-to, your own like little, like, I guess, your own little closet to go into and think about that one race and that one announcing and what happened.
Yeah, so there's a lot of examples, but there's one that always kind of rises to the top for me because of the number of ways that it was impactful on my life. And that would be the 2011 Turkey Night Grand Prix at Irwindale. There were so many reasons that event was cool. Like just getting to announce at Irwindale was very spectacular for me, to get to call the biggest pavement USAC race in the country. And I was 24 at the time. So it was a really spectacular opportunity. Brian Clausen was in the field, the Swanson brothers, but a little race car driver named Kyle Larson was in the field.
Yeah,
So it was a really
it
was a spectacular field. I think it was the second to last pavement Turkey Night. They did like one more the following year that I didn't announce. But and then even more fitting of what made that event cool was I got to announce with Jason Galvin, and that was the first time we had ever announced together, and we had barely even met before that. Ended up having great chemistry, and we became great friends, which we still are today. And we're both in the broadcasting world. Of course, he's risen so far with the drag racing stuff. And then one more aspect that was really cool is that event was in the very early days of live streaming for races. And that event was live streamed. And so that was a really cool opportunity for our careers, that we got to have all this visibility as one of the only live streams. Of course, it's Thanksgiving night, so the only race going on. And so that was a massive event for our careers. And I ended up getting all kinds of calls and job offers and all kinds of things to think about following that. And, it was a great race. So I'll kind of never forget that one.
So who out of all the drivers you've interviewed, because I see, like, this past Saturday we were at Las Vegas, you always walk the pit, and you interview all these drivers. Who would you say is one of your favorite drivers to interview?
Well, he's a smaller known name, but it was always really memorable coming up through the Madera Junior late model ranks was a young man named Austin Edwards. He was always a really top of the line interview. And if there's anyone listening that does interviews, or they're a driver, just authentically listen to the question that the interviewer asks you and answer it honestly and quick-witted, and you'll go a long way in the sport. Whenever we interview a driver that's very scripted, or you can tell they're pre-planning it, or sometimes we'll even hear them on the radio working with dad before they pull into victory lane of, okay, dad, what am I going to say? That's not going to get you very far. So whenever you come across a driver that's got a big personality and can just answer the questions very authentically in a very interesting way, that's always really fun. So I got to say, Austin Edwards is cool. We're all very blown away by Keelan Harvick and just how polite and professional he is. He also hasn't really been pressed. Like, he hasn't really had a moment where, a blemish or something where he's had to really explain himself. He's just been so flawless in his racing career with his on track. So we'll see how he handles pressure as his career goes on. But he's just so polite overall that he's really cool to interview. And then lately, I've really enjoyed interviewing with Taylor Mayhew. But again, another driver with Mayhew, where very positive. I mean, when he won on Saturday at Vegas, big smile on his face. And another driver where we'll see how he handles when he gets pressed a little bit. But yeah, I meet more drivers that I like interviewing than drivers that I don't. As long as they're authentically excited to be there and are excited to tell their story, we can get a good interview.
Wow, that's pretty awesome, especially Austin Edwards, because I mean, you've through the junior late model program, you've gone through, I mean, Jesse Love, you've gone through, well, of course, the Nascimentos, Hingarani, yeah, Derek. I'm sure Derek Thorne, you've interviewed him a lot, and
Yeah.
then of course Chase Hansen, Preston Peltier. I mean, and then going back east with the ASA series, you got Steven Nash, you got Bubba Pollard, you got Ty Majeski, and you got all these different drivers. But to hear Austin Edwards, driver from out here from Orange Show, I remember Austin when he was first coming up through Bandos, and that is really interesting.
Yeah. He just has a cool personality, and just an example of a driver where obviously this sport is so money driven that almost every year at Madera, we've got 4 to 5 kids that are deserving of going very, very far. But it really just comes down to the right combination of team, resources, opportunities. And in Austin's case, he kind of missed out, but still saw him this weekend at Vegas. He's still, one heck of a guy. Just the opportunities haven't been there.
Interesting. Well, Steven, we're gonna have to cut this one short. I know we're definitely this will probably gonna be a 2 to 3 segment interview, because we're running short on time. Is there anybody that any shout outs you want to give? Anybody that's helped you in the past? You
Yeah,
want
I
to shout
mean,
out to them?
yeah, it's this year is just really exciting getting to work with Kenny Shepard at Madera, and then being a part of all the things that Tim Huddleston is doing. I mean, I've got a lot of tracks and series I work for, obviously. And then I wanted to add one thing, kind of a finale for this. If you're looking for a good event in November, I highly recommend to the fans to take a look at our open wheel showdown at Las Vegas. $50,000 to win sprint car race with 6 supporting classes. 3 of them pay $10,000 to win. So we're expecting about 300 open wheel race cars at Las Vegas in November. And that's an event we work every single day on. And if you have not seen a sprint car go 11 seconds around the bull ring, you have to experience it. I don't know, Sal, have you been to that race? It's quite spectacular.
You know what? Back in the day, we used to have the super modifieds at Orendale, and those things they were running like 10, 11 seconds around the half mile. As far as the little bull ring over there in Vegas, Chris Clanky was telling me last year, he kept telling me to come on out. I had a conflicting race that weekend, but I think this year will be the first year that I'll probably actually get to go out there. But even when you guys run the sprints over at Madera, those things are, oh my gosh, those things are fast.
So I think the overarching point, I'll leave you with this. The overarching point is, as great as broadcasting is, and I'm a racing broadcaster, I produce, I edit, I love the video side of things. My number one thing is I always want to impart on people is we want to see you at the races. There is nothing that beats being at the track. I know it was a little bit cold at Vegas, but overall, that's what's going to help us succeed is more people in the stands and more people getting excited the way you and I are excited. So I hope to see lots of new, fresh faces this year.
And then the last thing, is there any social media that you want people where they can find you at?
Yeah, I have the easiest social media now, and you'll see my last name's kind of hard to spell. Look for me at Short Track Live. That's the brand I was able to build up. I can't believe I even got that domain. But anyway, so shorttracklive.com, Short Track Live on Instagram, Facebook, and we post about 8 to 10 track and series results and articles every week, along with some videos. And that's kind of the hub for the news side for everything I do. So Short Track Live, and you can keep up on a lot of the West Coast.
And with that, Steven, we want to thank you for coming on. And like I said, we definitely are going to continue this, later on, in the middle of the year.
Okay.
Um, so yeah, this was very, very interesting. Thanks so much for coming on. And then with that, we just want to thank everybody out there, that's thank you for watching and thank you for listening in. And you can re-listen to this. It'll be on Fan4Racing .com, or you can go to Fab for Racing on Facebook, and Sharon she puts all the content from the previews to the reviews from NASCAR, and also our interviews here. And then I'll when she sends me the link, then I'll put it on your messenger. So you can share it.
Great. Thanks again.
All right, thanks, Steven.
Take care.
Okay, goodbye.